My dear listeners, welcome back to today's reading session of my book, Testimony of a Gambian Military Officer and Diplomat. This is retired Lieutenant Colonel Samsudin Sarr, former commander of the Gambian National Army and the author of the book. Today, I'll be reading chapter 5 on this Monday, the 16th of October 2023. Presenting it in both English and Wolof languages. I wish to express my gratitude for your attention. At the conclusion of chapter 4, I recounted the journey when Captain Pa and I were chauffeured to the State House in Banjul for an undisclosed meeting we had been invited to. At the time, the identity of the inviting party remained unknown to us. Sergeant Boob, who had self-promoted to the rank of lieutenant and adorned the corresponding insignia, was behind the wheel of the minibus. During our journey, to our surprise, we tuned into Lieutenant Barry and Lieutenant Sane making a crucial announcement about the military takeover over the FM radio transistor in the vehicle. Soon after, we encountered Second Lieutenant Singate and Second Lieutenant Topper, who strangely inquired about our destination and the purpose of our trip. Of course, our course was set for the State House, where the inaugural meeting of all officers of the Gambia Security Forces was to take place. In the subsequent passage, I briefly discussed the identities of both Singate and Topper, highlighting their roles as young Gambian National Army officers. In particular, I elaborated on Singate's character and career, tracing his rise and fall from power within the first 6 months of the coup d'etat he successfully orchestrated and executed. I inadvertently omitted to mention that Topper, who collaborated with Singate throughout their nefarious activities from inception to downfall, suffered the same fate as his colleague 6 months later on the very same day. Singate fortunately survived the subsequent humiliation, embarrassment, and hardship of their fall from grace. Unfortunately, Topper succumbed to the horror they endured, ultimately consumed by the very system they helped create. He passed away prematurely and under mysterious circumstances while under detention. I invite you to accompany me through chapter 5 and the subsequent chapters to unravel the poignant tale of Singate and Topper, their ascent to power, and their tragic downfall. Chapter 5. The critical meeting and the leaders finally identified. The streets of Banjul appear to be relatively under control, much like those we traveled from Yundum via Latrikunda to Serekunda, Churchillstown, Chilswang to Banjul. There were only a few groups of armed soldiers driving recklessly through the deserted roads. Commercial and private traffic had come to a standstill, effectively isolating Banjul and its vital resources from the country's civilian population. Banjul boasted top-tier medical facilities, including the finest public hospital, blood bank, and advanced laboratories. Additionally, among other facilities, the city housed the primary high schools within the urban area, therefore making the city inaccessible will define logical reasoning on multiple fronts. Numerous individuals who needed to flee the city were embarking on the 7-mile journey to the combos on foot. Men, women, and children could be observed struggling to reach safety before nightfall. Regardless of the circumstances, I believe that the top priority should be to open the Banjul Highway to both private and commercial vehicles. Interestingly, my car remained parked at the Denton Bridge, where I had left it that morning. I couldn't fathom the idea of driving that Hyundai vehicle again, especially not in my former role as a staff officer. Approximately 10 hours had elapsed since the coup d'etat began, and I still harbored concerns about the possibility of armed conflict due to the leaderless soldiers who seemed to lack direction and authority. Upon our arrival at the State House, Second Lieutenant Edmond Samate was the first I encountered. He approached me immediately upon spotting us and confronted me with some rude questions. Captain Sir, there you are. Why did you inform us this morning that the Americans were prepared to engage us when there was no truth to it? He inquired. I was caught off guard by the directness and rudeness of the question coming from an officer whom I still regarded as junior to me. I was merely cautioning you, Lieutenant, to avoid causing harm and unnecessary complications, I replied. No, that's not true, he retorted. I spoke with Major McLean, who denied any intention of American involvement this morning. It will be recalled that Major McLean was the U.S. military attaché responsible for Senegal, Guinea-Bissau, and the Gambia, and was in the country for the visiting sailors of the naval ship and their daily activities. So now that everything has turned out all right, Lieutenant, what exactly are you complaining about? I challenged him. I can't say, he admitted, but you shouldn't have made that remark. He walked away, grumbling inaudibly. Samate, like I stated, was just 26 years old, yet he exuded the personality and attitude of an individual far beyond his years. And he indeed bore a striking resemblance to his younger brother, Pate Samate, who was undergoing officer training in the United States of America. Both siblings were oddly fair in complexion and spoke English with a British intonation. Some officers within the GNA had frequently questioned their dubious residency status within the country, a matter that should have rendered them ineligible to serve in the Gambian National Army, an institution intended exclusively for Gambian citizens. Rumors circulated that they still maintain their British citizenship and passports. Regardless of his rudeness, in my perspective, these Samates portrayed themselves as amiable personalities, particularly Edmund, whom I had still esteemed as an upstanding officer and a true gentleman. I even entertained the idea that had he been of the right age, he could have been an ideal candidate to lead the nation temporarily until civilian governance could be reinstated. I was inclined to offer my support to him. This sentiment persisted until I discovered during my time in detention that he was actively advocating within the ruling military council for the execution of all of us, the detained officers. Shockingly, this grim plan was reportedly advised by the then head of state of Sierra Leone, Captain Valentine Strasser. We first received this revelation with skepticism when it was relayed to us while under detention by Captain Alaji Kinte, the first GNA officer appointed as spokesperson for the junta, who few weeks after his appointment was himself detained with us. Many of us had dismissed Kinte's warning that Samate was even more sinister than Lucifer, especially after learning that Samate had ordered the arrest and imprisonment of Kinte. However, the subsequent events of September 6, 1999, specifically referred to as the night of the torture, laid bare the true malevolence within Samate that Kinte had tried to forewarn us about. Anyway, on that afternoon day of the 22nd of July 1994, I attributed Edmund's unexpected rudeness towards me at the State House to the mounting stress of the coup, which was evidently taking a toll on everyone involved. Although I couldn't discern the underlying reasons for his behavior, I nevertheless continued to hold a genuine trust and fondness for him. As the clock struck 6 p.m., the State House remained engulfed in disarray. Armed soldiers alongside officers at the TSG, who had now thrown their full support behind the GNA mutiny, occupied various corners of the premises. Many members of the presidential guards lingered, awaiting instructions. As earlier indicated, the fact that Lieutenant Haja Jane and Second Lieutenant Keba Topper were formerly part of the TSG eased the identification of a good number of them with the insurgents' cause. Then just after 6 p.m., a gathering of GNA and TSG officers convened at the expansive waiting room within the presidential mansion in Banjul. The huge building, known as the State House, held historical significance as the former residence of colonial governors of the Gambia. The imposing structure, consisting of 2 floors, had been partitioned by the British into an array of rooms, varying in sizes and purpose. It housed bedrooms, living spaces, kitchens, toilets, offices, conference chambers, and spacious waiting areas. Within this grand estate, President Dembo Jaula resided alongside his two wives and a multitude of children. There was a newly built annex, undoubtedly designed to enhance this comfort. Until fate intervened, symbolizing his commitment to indefinitely hold on to power. The expansive waiting room with ample seating accommodated the assembled officers for the upcoming meeting. The meeting commenced in a rather abnormal manner. No military protocol was observed. In accordance with the Gambian National Army seniority hierarchy, present was Major Abdullah Sar, commander of the Marine Unit, who had earlier that day advised against employing his heavy weaponry. Major Lamid Job was also in attendance, the Gambian National Army medical doctor. The four other Gambian National Army majors, Major Jara, Major Jackson, Major Gay, and Major Conte, were absent. The six majors constituted the entire upper echelon of the Gambian National Army senior officers body. Among the captains present were Captain Hamad Charen, who held a critical role as the operations officer at Army headquarters, plus Captain Sane and Captain Ba, the principal company commanders at Yundum Barracks. We happen to be the only four captains among the whole 11 captains of the Gambia National Army present that evening. And among the lieutenants present that evening were Lieutenant Haja Jane, Lieutenant Sekuba Barrow, and Second Lieutenant Edmond Samate, along with a few more officers of various ranks from the TSG. There were in fact quite a good number of TSG officers and NCOs in attendance, including Major Moro Mbake and Lieutenant Sang Boto Jamba, ex-deputy commander of the Presidential Guard. Later, I would come to learn that there were more TSG officers and NCOs than I could account for. Though Major Rahim Jonga, the Deputy Inspector General of Police, was missing. We sat in silence for a while, all of us waiting for someone to address the purpose of our gathering and the events that had transpired. The officers who were not part of the coup were eager to understand what exactly happened and our responsibilities in the new government to be. Unexpectedly, Lieutenant Haja Ajane rose from his seat and began to point his finger at everyone in the room, using impolite language and issuing threats to everyone listening. To all of you, he declared, if you believe that this will devolve into the kind of government you expect, you must be mistaken. I refuse to let anyone undermine our efforts after we have risked our lives today. I wouldn't allow others to steal the spotlight on what we achieve. This will not be a monkey walk, baboon eat business. He continued his address using more offensive language and showing disrespect towards his juniors, peers, and superiors on the floor. The room fell into an uneasy silence as we absorbed his harsh words. I reached a point where I could no longer tolerate his lack of civility. His remarks directly attack our positions and personal dignity. Even though Major Abdoulaye Sarr, Major Lamin Job, and Major Moro Mbake of the TSG were the most senior officers in the room, they all remained silent in the face of Haja Jane's abusive tirade. Frustration soared within me, and I could no longer endure the degradation. I stood up, confronting his inappropriate statement at that crucial moment about monkeys walking and baboons eating, when our nation teetered on the edge of fragile peace. I told him that it was sheer narrow-mindedness to think like that, which only revealed the greed that drove them into overthrowing the government, and not for a genuine pursuit of political change. My words seemed to enrage him, and he longed for a word as if he might physically attack me. Samate swiftly intervened, restraining him and coaxing him to take his seat. I was ready to retaliate. We were both armed. "Excuse me, Captain Sarr," Samate interjected, taking control of the conversation. "Allow me to shed light on the organization and execution of this school, and to clarify all misconceptions. This revelation was precisely what we all required at that moment. You see, this school was initially conceived by 5 of us," he said. "Lieutenant Sekuba Baro, Lieutenant Alpha Kante, Lieutenant Kending Singate, Lieutenant Alpha Kinte, and myself. Even Lieutenant Haja Ajani, sitting right here, was in part of our inner circle. Lieutenant Barrow was chosen to lead us, but he, along with Kinte and Kante, betrayed us at the 11th hour. Lieutenant Kinte and Kante were absent, but Lieutenant Sekuba Bari was together with Captain Sane, who together with Captain Sane made the first radio announcement of the coup earlier in the afternoon, sat just a few yards away, silently absorbing the allegations against him. Our collective gaze turned towards Lieutenant Barry, who kept his head bowed, declining to address the accusations. Samati proceeded to elaborate on how Lieutenant Haja Jane and Platoon Commander Lieutenant Keba Topper were invited into the fold during the final stages after the betrayal. Truthfully, Captain Sarr, Samati stated, this operation was conceived and executed solely by Second Lieutenant Singate and myself. Therefore, this meeting lacks its appropriate context without Singate's presence. This is a crucial fact that all should be aware of. My mind began to race, pondering the mystery of who had convened the officers' assembly at the State House. Neither Samate nor Jane appeared to have any knowledge of it. Furthermore, Singate and Topper acted oblivious to the gathering when Captain Ba and I encountered them on our way traveling from Bindum to Banjul. Who then was behind the invitation for the meeting at the State House? My instincts suspected Lieutenant Barry and Captain Sane, which was never necessarily confirmed. However, Major Abdoulaye Sarr offered his perspective next. He turned his attention to me and declared, Captain Sar, it seems we now have clarity. The spotlight should remain on the young officers who masterminded and executed this operation. We ought to allow them to bring their plan to fruition. Several other officers rallied behind Major Sar's sentiment, endorsing the notion that the coup's architects should be permitted to carry out their mission. Once more, a sense of apprehension washed over me as I contemplated the potential turmoil that lay ahead. I couldn't help but wonder about the message they will convey to the nation as the rationale behind toppling the government. In 1981, Kufang Pambajabang announced an unprecedented motive for overthrowing the PPP government. Through Radio Gambia, he proclaimed their intention to replace the existing capitalist state with a Marxist-Leninist political ideology and economic system. The pronouncement raised significant concerns among most Gambians who feared that socialism or communism could undermine their religious freedoms, beliefs, and the concept of private property and wealth ownership. The West African neighboring states and the global community at large were equally alarmed by the prospect of more such regimes emerging in the sub-region, considering the already existing instances in Guinea-Bissau and Guinea-Conakry. Consequently, Senegal took decisive action and invaded the Gambia, quelling the rebellion with brutal force. This military intervention resulted in the tragic loss of many civilian lives and widespread destruction of both private and public property. Kufang's inaugural address to the nation seemed to foreshadow this grim outcome. It was evident to me that a similar international response would unfold if Lieutenant Haji Ajane or any other coup leader were to make ludicrous proclamations akin to monkeys orchestrating a government overthrow to secure their bananas and prevent baboon theft. Such statements will undoubtedly trigger both external and internal opposition, potentially prompting Senegal to once again swiftly intervene with military force to restore order. However, my consolation thus far was the perception that Haja's control of the situation was not absolute. Rather, Samate, whom I still regarded as more rational, appeared to hold sway. In the aftermath of Samate's proclamation and its endorsement, a pervasive sense of hopelessness and confusion permeated the atmosphere. The absence of Singate and Topper, along with uncertainty about their return, weighed heavily on everyone's mind. It was as if, though, the collective desire was for swift normalization to resume our daily life with minimal disruptions. Finally, Lieutenant Sekuba Pari, who all along sat beside Captain Sane, addressed us, his tone pleading. The two of them were responsible for the radio announcement on our way from Yundum to Banjul. Gentlemen, Barry began. My statement will be very brief. I wish to express my objection to the notion that I betrayed my colleagues. My intention was simply to advocate for a postponement of the operation from July to the end of the year. Unfortunately, he did not elaborate on the rationale behind that stance. But now that everything has been resolved peacefully, Barry continued, his voice carrying a note of satisfaction, I want to extend my heartfelt congratulations to everyone who played a vital role in ensuring the success of this operation. Moreover, in light of this crucial junction, I strongly recommend that those of you in leadership positions seek the guidance of seasoned officers like Captain Charen and Captain Sar to navigate the upcoming phase of your triumph. Amazingly, Paris' recommendation was unanimously supported from the gathering. Both Jane and Samate swiftly endorsed the proposal before the assembly began to disperse. The meeting concluded in less than an hour, and the officers started to disperse. As the officers mingled and parted ways, Lieutenant Barry approached me, extending his hand for a firm shake. There was an unspoken sentiment in his eyes, as if he had something important to convey but couldn't find the words. After sharing 8 years of closeness with the officer, starting from his days as an NCO and progressing to an officer, little did I know that this will mark the final occasion I will see him and the last conversation we will share. Tragically, he will become the first officer to fall a mere 4 months later. Soon after Lieutenant Barry left, Lieutenant Haja Jani approached me, and I anticipated another confrontation. To my surprise, he extended his right hand in a gesture of peace. We held hands as he explained the reason for his earlier harsh tone during the meeting. I apologize, Captain Sar. My intention was not to be rude to all the officers, but my concern was mainly about Captain Mamadi Sane and Lieutenant Sekuba Barrow. He continued, can you believe they made an unauthorized announcement on Radio 1 FM this afternoon without consulting us? Obviously, I was aware of the radio announcement, but didn't disclose the details to Janet. I accept your apology, I replied, offering my own in return. I refrained from questioning why Captain Sane wasn't considered an equal partner in the victory, despite his full and equal participation in the operation until the very end. However, this part of the puzzle was soon clarified when witnesses at the State House revealed that Captain Sane had approached Second Lieutenant Edmond Samate to inquire about his reward for his involvement in the operation. Edmond brusquely told him to leave and return to the barracks until they were ready to settle the situation. Sane departed without a protest. With Captain Charen, Lieutenant Jani, Second Lieutenant Samate, and myself, together, we promptly convened to brainstorm our next steps. Initially, we concurred on the urgency of establishing a transitional government as soon as possible. Naturally, the absence of Singate and Topper posed a challenge as they continued to run around the streets, randomly halting private vehicles and searching them without cause. Assuming the responsibility of guiding the young officers through these uncharted waters was a complex endeavor. I found myself in a role I hadn't anticipated, with no prior knowledge of coups, governance, or their intricate implications. The underlying rationale for orchestrating the coup was very important to its ultimate triumph or failure. A first avenue we considered was to highlight the pervasive abusive conditions prevalent within the army. The GNA had borne the brunt of disrespect from the PPP government, despite being a volunteer force that predominantly drew in underprivileged youths. The wounds from the past lingered. GNA soldiers who had served in Liberia were still haunted by the abandonment of Corporal Lang Banjang and Private Selujalo's remains, casualties of the 1990 Monrovia incident. Here I end chapter 5, folks. I will be drawing the curtain here until next time. So have a nice day.